Good evening, and we're live here on Zingo Television, I-95, Facebook Live, YouTube, and everywhere you can hear the sound of my voice. This is Beyond the Buzzer for the Monday night edition for August 17th, 2020. I'm your host, Danny Thompson from the Three Point Conversion, Beyond the Buzzer, and the other place you can find my work as well. And also, we do this show twice a week with my main man to the right of me, who's also wearing the blue and also a lighter shade of blue, the student of the game himself, Mr. Kyle Nash from the Three Point Conversion as well too. Mr.
Yeah.
Nash, how you doing, my friend?
I'm glad you brought that up, man. I had my first guest appearance with WAXC over in Vero Beach with Chris Pirtle, who introduced me for the first time as being with the Three-Point Conversion. It's feeling good doing the thing. And hey, by the way, let's give Danny Thompson his props. It's not just on Facebook, but in real life. His hair looks all right. Ain't nobody so as him. He's just so special.
Don't have me start dancing over here. So listen, if you're watching the show on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, by all means, comment, like, and share the post as well too that you're watching. And also, if you have any comments, it will be shown on air. So even if you are LA Broadus as usual, with his typical Monday and Thursday comment, I'm waiting for. Always chime in. It's a great time here on the show. So also big shout outs to our good friends at Valor, which is at itsvalor.us. They provide so many different sources of ways to not only just enhance your business or your products, but also helping your marketing needs as well too. And also, if you need some music, they can take care of that as well too. You probably heard their music. Even I think they had music on the UFC fight over the weekend as well too. Check them out at itsvalor.us. And also, even though I'm in Charlotte and Kyle's down in Orlando, big shout out to our good friends at Mentality Barbershop, 2611 Pine Hills Road in Orlando, Florida. My main man, Corey Lamar. Big Dio and Lisa J and the entire crew over there. The best barbershop in Orlando. Definitely a place I'll be going the second I touch down in the city. Speaking of touching down in the city of Orlando, we're going to start with the What's the Buzz segment, which is the opening segment of the show. And guess what? We all know what it is. We're not talking about Major League Baseball tonight. It is the NBA and the playoffs kicked off tonight. And listen, Bubble Madness has ended with the playing game over the weekend. We'll discuss that in a second. But we have real life playoff basketball that quote unquote will count for something. The NBA playoffs did start off today, and it started off kind of differently than normal. In the last few years, the NBA playoffs always started on Saturday, and with the Saturday start time, the Toronto Raptors normally would have the early game on Saturday because they're the only team in Canada, so you get the game out the way early. Well, with everybody in neutral site, Canada doesn't go first. But we were entertained by Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz taking on the Denver Nuggets. Donovan Mitchell became the youngest player to score over 50 points in a playoff game since Michael Jordan's 63 points against the Boston Celtics in the 85 NBA playoffs. Well, unfortunately, Donovan Mitchell's 57 points wasn't enough as the Denver Nuggets took care of game one because literally the Jazz and Mitchell ran out of shots in overtime. I think it was by an 8-point score in that first game. Second game of the day, the Toronto Raptors, who actually played, were up by as many as 30 points in the second quarter. The Nets fought back, but the Raptors took care of business in game one. Kyle, and also the Philadelphia 76ers and Boston Celtics are playing right now, and it looks like the Celtics will be closing this out and take a 1-game-0 advantage. Kyle, listen, I know we had an exciting game over the weekend, but first and foremost, how excited are you to actually see playoff sports right now?
You know, it's not just, it's the thing, like, it's not like we're just, a bunch of sports addicts going off of the sports version of methadone here either, Danny Thompson. Let the record be absolutely clear. You're seeing quality stuff, right? There's a team that went 8-0 and missed the playoff opportunity. You have what Portland's doing, sneaking their way in with the play-in game. And not for nothing, I can feel good about myself with basketball being my third language. Well, fourth if you ask G. Stelio, because he says my third is beer, but details. But my third language being basketball, I looked real smart with the way that the Nuggets won that game against the Jazz, because I felt my prediction or my analysis was that they have a lot more depth than the Jazz overall and will hang on. And if one man scoring 57 points and still losing isn't proof of that, hey, I don't know what is. But yeah, it's not just so much that we're getting games to just pass the time. There is some compelling basketball here, and God bless it.
Yes, compelling basketball is great because the last week before the bubble, we had compelling basketball. It was just a little bit different. The
Right.
race for the eighth spot in the Western Conference, because the Eastern Conference playoff race ended before this thing even started, because the Washington Wizards had no chance anyway. It all came down to a boiling head over the weekend. Listen,
Mhm.
the last 4 days between the time we had touched off the air on Thursday night after Damian Lillard's in the Portland Trailblazers surviving literally on the final shot of the game when Karis LeVert missed to set a one-game playoff. And with the one-game playoff, you have the Portland Trailblazers and the Memphis Grizzlies going at it. One game with potential for two to find out the winner for the Los Angeles Lakers on Tuesday. Well, the Blazers won the game and won in tremendous fashion, which leads to the question: with all the excitement of the NBA, do we need more play-in basketball? I wrote about it in the three-point conversion article, which is up today, about my thoughts on it. But Kyle, before I dig into my thoughts a little bit, what are your thoughts? I know, like I said, since basketball is now becoming a new language for you, this is really pretty much your first time really digging into basketball really deep. How were your thoughts processes on the play-in game? Do you think they should continue going forward?
It's a good way to keep it compelling for those teams that are just on the outside looking in, and to prevent the sort of minutia leading towards the end of the season that you might get. Players that have locked up a seed here or there may now have to try a little bit harder if they're down in that eighth spot or whatever. But I'm going to kind of reiterate to a thought that I went to going beforehand that needs to be really stipulated, because a play-in game is really only entertaining and worth your time in the right situation, which we did happen to have in the bubble here. Okay, I don't want to see two sub 41 teams battling for the right for that eighth spot in the East. Who cares? Okay, if it was the Magic and whoever battling for that last spot, we didn't have that work out here, but it could have been possible that it was the Magic and the Nets, for example. That would not have been compelling basketball to do a play-in game with. We had a good situation where we had a hot Portland team sneaking their way, surging in through. Could they break through the wall that was the Memphis Grizzlies? That made for good stuff. And I'm glad to hear your situation there, Mr. DeSantis. Heisenberg for the win. But what I'm getting, in the right situation, it will work. But I'm not prepared to make it a situation that happens all the time.
Exactly. I think for me, in any situation when it comes to this, so here, like I said, on the article I wrote in the three-point conversion, it should work like this. All right. Now, the rule this year was you had to be within 4 games because of the fact that there's missing games everywhere. I like the idea of having it within 4 games, but of course, there's got to be reason behind it. Besides the fact of, listen, a play-in game works for everybody. And I'll tell you how it works for everybody. Kyle, hear me out here.
I am.
How the ideal work is, of course, you would have the 8-9 play-in game. Now, what advantage does it give? Here's what you do. If you give the 8th-seeded team the ability to have potentially 2 extra home games, so the 9th-seeded team will have to travel. The 9th-seeded team gets no home games. All right? That's one. But if there's 2 teams, like the Grizzlies and the Phoenix Suns both fell within that realm, they were tied. You throw the 7th place team in. So it'll be 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. Double elimination games, get them out the way. What will happen is, the issue we've had for the longest period of time with the NBA is this. Once you get past St. Patrick's Day, and that's, of course, to go to Mike Sanders' comment about being a Celtics fan, the good old 4-leaf clover. Right. After St. Patrick's Day until basically tax day, which is more likely around the NBA season about mid-April, if your team is nowhere near the playoffs or doesn't have a chance to it, guess what? You don't care. If you've already got the first 6 or 7 seeds locked up, you're basically making sure you're not getting hurt. What you get in potentially the last 4 to 5 weeks of the NBA season is the teams that are chasing for the playoffs are doing one thing. You have teams who are tanking doing something else, and you have teams in the playoffs not really caring. So that leads to a lot of bad basketball to watch because guess what? Star players aren't really involved in it, and there's nothing to play for in a lot of cases. This year, think about this. If we had basketball and we didn't have COVID, Kyle, we would have seen games like Atlanta versus Charlotte. We would have saw Denver versus like Minnesota. Nobody wants to see those games. Or even in situations where, let's say the Lakers go to a city, or even the Clippers, for example. The Clippers will probably be resting players on a regular basis. All right. How this works is, and how the best idea is If there's two teams inside that 4 game position, or if you get down, if 2 games are within 2 games, 2 teams are within 2 games of the A spot, you throw the 7th seed in there. Guess what? Nobody wants to be the 7th seed. No one wants to play extra games. So guess what? If you're 1 or 2 games away from that 7th spot or that 6th spot, I guarantee you the 6th seeded team is going to go for the kill for the rest of the season. Until you know there's nothing left to play for, you go kill it. The 7th seed team is going to go even harder because guess what? We have incentive to get a couple of extra days off. Players want days off, but players also want game checks. Owners want extra arena money. Television networks want ratings and they want more ad time. This works out for everybody. Look at, for example, the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers lost Yusef Nurkic and didn't have him the entire season. Zach Collins got hurt early in the season. Having the ability to know that they've missed him for so many games, the Blazers were so far out of it. But if they know they had a chance to make the playoffs or trigger a chance to make the playoffs with Damian Lillard and the way he thinks, you know they were going for it. Here's another case in point. The Golden State Warriors lost Stephen Curry to a broken hand in the early part of November. They were right around 3 and 5. They were like 2-6, 2-7 at that point. Steph Curry decides to sell for 6 weeks and then decides to delay his hand surgery for 6 to 8 weeks. Then guess what? He takes surgery and is not due back till March. If the Warriors knew that they had a chance in the playoffs, even with the slow start, do you think Steph Curry delays that hand surgery? Do you think they delay Klay Thompson returning back to the court? Klay Thompson's injury was really a 7-month injury. He could have came back in January. You really think he would have had setbacks? No, the Warriors wouldn't have thrown it in. I guarantee you, if you give teams the ability to make the playoffs, you look in the Eastern Conference, teams like Charlotte, look at teams like, for example, Chicago, Detroit before they traded everybody. They would have gone harder. They would have probably tried to make moves at the deadline to increase their chances. Listen, basketball purists and old school fans, I can consider myself one of them, don't like this idea. But if you're going to have more compelling basketball, especially in March, especially in April, why not? Every sport has changed somehow. You can't stay the same forever. What did baseball do to get people back after both strikes and a shutdown? They created the wild card games. You create game number 163 because guess what? People were interested. It got the blood flowing. It got the juices going. What we watched on Saturday was watching 2 teams give everything they had. Memphis gave everything they had, even though they did not have Jaren Jackson, even though they didn't have Justice Winslow and Tyus Jones. None of those guys were available. But I'll tell you one thing, Kyle. When the game was over, I bet you knew who John Morant was, didn't you?
Or if I didn't, I sure as hell learned, right? And listen,
the entire country figured out who he was.
Yeah, I'll give you credit, man. Like I appreciate where you're coming from because we're both aware of the problem that they being the NBA have with having to keep fans interested and how things like load management and tanking and all of that have affected that. And this could be something to combat some of it. And I don't think you believe that it can completely solve the problem. It can't.
No.
But the NBA needs anything it can to try to rectify the issue while they try harder to figure it out. This could be a temporary gap. I see it from that perspective. I still don't think it'll be compelling basketball unless it's in the right situation. But I mean, I kind of see what you're going for there. I mean, it's not all bad. I don't agree with it so much, but the intent is there. I could argue you're trying harder than the NBA league office with some of this,
Well, I think the league office will have something to think about in the offseason because you got to think the new CBA is coming up.
Yeah.
So guess what? This is something that you're going to be able to spring because the television contracts are coming up. Yep. If you're ESPN and you're TNT and you have the ability to have the exclusive rights to have additional basketball, and people are going to watch because guess what? They're playing for something. They're playing for something that's super important. Listen, yes, you're going to have the ability to risk the injury of players, but players have a chance to be injured pretty much on a game-to-game basis. Will guys try to rush back and potentially hurt themselves? It could happen. Yes, I understand that. But you also have to understand these guys are super competitive.
Right. No, that's a good point.
If you think that Steph Curry wouldn't have tried to delay that surgery knowing they had a chance at the wild card spot, a wild card playoff spot, you don't think the Warriors would have not traded D'Angelo Russell a lot sooner? They would have done it. You don't think, for example, for example, Detroit, when they traded Andre Drummond, you don't think, because they were 6 games out of the playoff spot when they were 6 games out of the playoff spot when they traded him. Knowing that they could have got within 4 additional games, you think they would have traded him to Cleveland? They would have rode this thing out. They might have went out and got some additional help. If you throw a carrot in front of somebody's going to bite it. It is that simple. You don't think teams like the Chicago Bulls wouldn't have made a coaching change, thinking they could have a shot at the wild card? Listen, I know it's already, and Kyle, your case, no one wants to see 240 win teams play in the play-in game. Hell, the Eastern Conference hasn't had a year where all 7 teams all 8 teams have been over 500 since, I don't know, the dinosaur ages. The Eastern Conference has been bad for years. All right. Brooklyn was under 500, and so was the Orlando Magic, and they both got in the playoffs. Okay. So to that point, Kyle, I get what you're saying. You don't want to see losing teams in the playoffs. Hell, we got 2 losing teams playing right now. It doesn't change anything. The Eastern Conference is not changing. But what we will have is, I guarantee you, if they have a chance at the playoffs, because guess what? Players have money on the line. You don't think they get extra incentive bonuses for making the playoffs?
Well,
guess what?
They do. Yeah.
Because Kevin Durant got a $1 million bonus from the Brooklyn Nets, as we see right here. The Nets paid him $1 million for a playoff bonus last week. He ain't played a game all season, but he got a $1 million check in his bank account for making the playoffs. These guys get paid for it. You don't think they're going to go harder? No, you don't think they'll go harder in November and December, knowing that, guess what? They're going to need every game they're going to play every game like it's their last. And that's what we want. You think that you see teams resting players more often? Because guess what? That one game could come around and bite them at the end.
No, I hear that. And the only comeback I really have to that point of view is not the 8th game, the 8th spot to get into the wild card may not be incentive enough for some teams in some cases to do that, but you have something there for up-and-coming franchises to target. I think, like, for example, an Orlando Magic franchise, Portland certainly fits the bill, obviously, right? The Suns, whoever.
Listen, think about this. If you look at Atlanta and Phoenix, for example, or even Phoenix, for example, Phoenix lost DeAndre Ayton due to suspension because he had 25 games for a performance-enhancing thing that he was performance-enhancing situation where he took something that I guess one of the ingredients was not part of the part of the banned substance list. John Collins had the same thing. The Hawks, I think, with 4-21 without John Collins, and the Suns with, I think, 5-20. I'm not 100% like 5-20 without DeAndre Ayton.
They were bad.
Guess what? They were bad. Both teams were bad. But guess what? The Suns crawled right back in this race. You don't think Atlanta would have went out and did something if they knew they said, you know what, we still can save the season? That's the whole thing.
If you got everybody, you try. No, I get you.
You do what you can. I guarantee you, there'll be less teams worrying about the draft and more teams trying to trigger that play-in game. You'll have better basketball. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? If nobody falls in it, guess what? The play-in game doesn't get triggered. It is what it is. You're just giving team.
Yeah, if the criteria is strong, it's a good plan. I mean, I think we're kind of on the same page on that. Yeah,
I mean, we're not letting if you're 12 games out of the final playoff spot, we ain't having a play-in game. All right, we'll see you on the draft lottery. Okay, make sure you got your representative, and make sure you're in the room when they pick the ping pong balls. So no, I just think that if you give teams an opportunity, because hey, listen, injuries. I know in every sport there's always injuries. It isn't every sport, but man, when you have an 82 game season, guys being out for multiple games can tank an entire season. But if you're giving them the opportunity to say, you know what, you got one chance. All you got to do is do this. All right. We understand injuries. We understand things happen throughout the season. Just give them a little bit of buffer room. Just give them a little bit of room of error. Guarantee you basketball will be so much better. But like you said, you saw Mike DeSantis step in there earlier. If you're in the chat, go ahead and put a comment, like, or share on the bottom of the page. All right. with bubble basketball going on, so here's how the schedule works. If you're going to watch the final game of the night, which is Clippers and Dallas Mavericks, is a great idea. Make sure we're on with our voice and you're watching them on mute. All the games stay on ESPN. The games tomorrow is on TNT. All right. So TNT has all 4 games tomorrow, which includes Lakers and Blazers as the nightcap tomorrow night, which would be basically must-watch television. And on top of that, tomorrow's games include the Miami Heat taking on the Indiana Pacers, a.k.a. the Jimmy Butler, T.J. Warren series. So if you're looking for a potential fight, that might be the series that you're looking for. All right, Lakers and Blazers is the game because the Blazers are the hottest team in the league right now, and Damian Lillard is on fire. Quick note, Boston swingman Gordon Hayward will go at MRI on his sprained ankle. He sprained tonight, and now the good news is that he's going to take the MRI inside the bubble. We don't know about his status going forward, but the MRI is being taken as we speak. And if we have any more information, we'll update you as we go along. Other games going on tomorrow in the bubble, the 4-5 matchup, Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Houston Rockets. Yes. If you love 3-pointers and the potential fact of guys running around like this is LA Fitness on a 2:00 on the afternoon Tuesday, shooting shots, this is a game you want to watch. All right. There is no over-under. The over-under is the operator of the scoreboard. There are going to be 3-pointers shot everywhere. Okay. Just know that. Other games tomorrow in the Eastern Conference, the Orlando Magic take on the Milwaukee Bucks. In other news, around the league, we did have a couple of head coaches being removed from their positions this week. Alvin Gentry of the New Orleans Pelicans was sent out the door and was fired the other day, sometime over the weekend. Listen, it's really simple. Alvin Gentry took the fall. It's all it is. It's this simple. He took the fall. Zion Williamson was not completely in shape, and we've known this. He is in shape. We just don't know what kind of shape he is. All right. Zion Williamson played 19 games. Yes, he's extremely round. When Charles Barkley gives you advice to lose weight, it's telling you something.
Trouble. Oh, boy.
Zion Williamson, I'm not going to say got the man fired, but listen, when you only play 19 games and then you show up, family issues is one thing, but when you show up completely out of shape, even worse than what you were before the season ended, your head coach ain't lasting much longer. All right. And for Bulls fans, I think they started the parade because Jim Boylan was fired as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. Listen, it was a terrible fit. Young guys don't like being treated like they're in the military. It doesn't work in the NBA. Never has, never will. Point blank. All right. That's enough of my rant on basketball and the inside of the bubble. Speaking of inside of things, unfortunately, the inside of our good friends in Canada, the CFL, we're going to switch over to football. The CFL canceled the season today after the Canadian government denied a $30 million loan to let the league play this year. Now, Canada, of all countries, doesn't have that many issues with COVID, but the problem with the CFL is that, guess what? They need fans. And they don't draw. If they're getting a $30 million loan, they don't make nowhere near as much as the NFL does. Yeah. So with the CFL going down, guess what, Kyle? There'll be a lot more players without jobs. And guess what? NFL roster spots are opening up left and right because guess what? It is training camp season. Why are injury spots opening up, Kyle? Guess what? There'll be injuries across the NFL. 2 players say Jalen Hurd of the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver is potentially out for the rest of the season with another injury to, I think it was a knee. Was it a knee or Achilles, Kyle, if I'm 100% sure.
MCL, actually.
The MCL, which I think will end his season, a guy that the 49ers needed. Kyle, describe the role of Jalen Hurd, what he was supposed to bring to the 49ers.
I mean, if nothing else, he was supposed to give something on the other side to Brandon Ayuk. And listen, I have confidence in him, but when you're down to a rookie receiver who's your top guy, you're in trouble. You know, what Jalen was bringing was to just provide some sort of depth at the position. Something else for Jimmy Garoppolo to look at other than James Kittle and a rookie. Now, not really there. So, but I mean, the good news, what you can take is I see the Niners are going to run the ball a lot. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams stack that box and then try to do something to bump Kittle. So that'll create a lot of one-on-one matchups. Hopefully these other guys can take advantage and break out and show that they have something to bring here at the next level.
The Niners just signed George Kittle, we talked about last week, to a huge extension to his contract.
Right.
But the Niners, they brought in Brandon Ayuk. This is going to hurt. Yeah. The Niners don't have much depth at the wide receiving core. or not much depth, not much proven depth at the receiving core. They don't have like a Michael Crabtree sitting around the roster that can effectively make plays. This is going to hurt. Now, the injury of Gerald McCoy in Dallas will hurt as well too, but the blow is softened a little bit. Gerald McCoy's season will end because he had surgery today, and will ending the Dallas Cowboys signing of Gerald McCoy for the season. The good news is they signed Everson Griffin this week, but Kyle, losing Gerald McCoy, how badly will it hurt Dallas not to have McCoy?
They've revamped that defensive line, and in general, Gerald McCoy was more kind of a luxury to what they were bringing. We all know that the target and the main focal point is, of course, DeMarcus Lawrence, but what that defensive line could have been is obviously out the window now. This was going to be a group that we talked about. We talked about this since they signed him, that they could have been sneaky good. I believe Dontari Poe, also a member of that group now, who's trying to sneak to make it that group is sneaky good. McCoy isn't what he used to be, but even at 80%, he beats a lot of guys. Is he Aaron Donald? Obviously not. Is he Fletcher Cox? No, he's not. But he's a top-level guy, and in that division could be the difference between a particular third down being converted or not, which could actually, decide the NFC East with as competitive as it could be. It's a pretty big blow, Danny.
It is. I mean, Everson Griffin is a big pass rusher, but in the NFL, you do need defensive tackles, and Gerald McCoy when healthy, is one of the better defensive tackles you have in the entire league. Mm-hmm. So will it hurt Dallas? I think it will. But like you said, to the point, they revamped that entire defensive line. Yep. I like what they've done in the offseason, and man, this is the type of year where you don't want any player to go down. You don't want it to happen in any season, but in a season like this, where it's just different, every player is going to count. So speaking of players that every player is going to count, Kyle, let's go a little deeper into the NFL. Kyle, with training camps now opening up across the league, and like I said, we're probably getting into about week 2, and you even see media members being allowed to go to practices. Kyle, what are 2 of the major storylines? I'll let you go 2 per conference that you're looking into or have the most interest in so far in training camp. I'll let you pick the conference first. Which conference you want to start with, AFC or the NFC?
I'm going to go ahead and do the AFC first, and really the story that I find is basically the AFC East on the whole, man. What to make of this division is just a very compelling stuff, and I'm coming at you with one big headline because it's 3 little mini headlines all in there at the same time. What can Cam Swag do in New England without a camp? Can he bring the Pats to be still the top of the division yet another year? Can Buffalo hold on to do something special in the AFC East and take over the crown and change the guard from the Patriots this season? Can the Dolphins, have they made enough improvements to show flash and be competitive for that extra playoff spot this season? And listen, I'm gonna go ahead and add this to it. As much of a hard time as we give our good friend Lamont Broadus, I think the Browns are a playoff team with an extra playoff spot in the mix. So that'll do it for the AFC side. The NFC South is compelling in its own way. Obviously, Brady's there, but give credit to the Saints doing what they do. And listen, as much fun as I make of your fraud cons who want to show me something good and then not deliver, I really think they're getting slept on a little too much this season. So even for all the trash I talk, maybe they're missing a pass rush that I'd like to see, but that offense, they're getting slept on. And I think it's going to be something where you might see 3 teams come out of the NFC South, considering the fact that I'm pretty sure the Carolina Panthers are going to go 0-6 in the division. It's a rough go. And honestly, I feel bad for our good friend Antoine Staley being stuck covering a team that's going to have such a bad record this season once again.
It's funny because the one ironic thing is with the Carolina Panthers is that when a lot of times when they count the Panthers out, they end up being way better than what they're supposed to. Now, mind you, Ron Rivera is not coaching this team. Matt Rule is the head guy in charge down there. Now, if Matt Rule gets this team to 500, he might as well be coach of the year at this point. All right,
that's fair.
I mean, if you change the Carolina Panthers and change the mentality to at least a 500 team, you got to get consideration coach of the year. I think there's 2 of the storylines I'm really looking into. Besides the fact that Chris Hogan, I think, became the first player to play for all 4 teams in the AFC East. I think he signed with the Dolphins, and he has now played for the Jets. He has now played for every single team in the AFC East.
Well
All right.
done, I guess.
Exactly. So here are the storylines I'm going to see. I'm really interested to see. I'm really interested to see the progression of Kyler Murray in Arizona.
That's a good one.
We've watched Patrick Mahomes from year one as a starter to year two. From being back up to what he did in year one to what he did in year two as a starter. Okay. We watched Lamar Jackson evolve from his first year when he took over midseason to what he did last year. Mm-hmm. Kyler Murray had an outstanding rookie season for what he was able to do, being the number one overall pick and learning a new offense with a new head coach. Learning all this, he played better than I thought he was going to play as a rookie. Now, they went out and got arguably one of the three best receivers in the NFL to go on top of weapons everywhere. They have Kenyon Drake for a full season. Kenyon Drake changed the Arizona offense when he got there.
Sure did.
It gave them a stable running game to go on top of everything they had. Now you have a stable running game, a decent defense, and you have receivers with the point where Christian Kirk is now in the slot. You have Larry Fitzgerald, or you can put Fitzgerald in the slot. You thought Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to catch it. They're going to run more rollouts, which means DeAndre Hopkins has more time to get open. I really want to see Kyler Murray's year two might have been what everybody wanted Baker Mayfield to do in year two. I think that's what.
I think the only thing you're forgetting in comparing Kyler Murray to Lamar Jackson is at the end of the day, John Harbaugh is that coach. We'll have to see what that coaching staff in Arizona could do. But hey, I would ask you this there, Danny. Do you think that Kyler Murray is going to be doing so much rolling out that it's ludicrous?
Not to be confused with Sugar Golden Crisp. All right. That's one storyline in the NFC I'm really looking at. Here's the other storyline. Listen, everybody has doubted Aaron Rodgers. Listen, his own franchise doubted him by drafting a quarterback in the first round when they were one game away from the Super Bowl. Instead of giving him a dependable target, they drafted a quarterback. All offseason, Aaron Rodgers has been bashed, beat up, and torn down by critics, his own fan base, hell, his whole front office. They didn't say it, but you draft a quarterback in the first round and draft a running back in the second round instead of giving him receivers or tight ends. That's telling you something. Well, if anybody is a gamer in this league, it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
All right. For me, the more compelling story is, what is Aaron Rodgers going to do to prove everybody wrong? Listen, Aaron Rodgers' his time is ticking on winning a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has something to prove, and there's nothing better than having a gunslinger and one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL with something to prove. Listen, people complain about his completion percentage last year, but one thing you can't complain about is 26 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You don't complain about those numbers anywhere. No, trust me. I will take a quarterback with a completion percentage in the low 20s, but if he's giving me 26 and 4,000 yards, I'll take it any day of the week.
Especially
Guarantee most teams will. Exactly. Now, this could be Aaron Rodgers' swan song in Green Bay. But I'll tell you this: if he goes out, Aaron Rodgers goes out with a blaze of glory. I just really want to see what's going to happen next. Because if Rodgers leaves, I'm sorry, Kyle. I know that Jimmy Garoppolo is your guy, but listen, I think the 49ers would be the team chasing Aaron Rodgers if he becomes available to close the window.
Well, I'll see that. I'll raise you this, though. Here's what I think is going to happen. He's going to do it Brett Favre style. He's going to leave Minnesota, or excuse me, he's going to leave Green Bay, stay in division, and go to Chicago possibly.
Listen, Aaron Rodgers he'll be successful in Chicago.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, Danny Thompson. Who's going to beat him out? Mitchell Trubisky, please.
Jim Harbaugh, Mitchell Trubisky, Kyle Orton, Randy Orton. You don't know who you're going to get a quarterback for the Bears every week. I mean, Jim McMahon, Vince McMahon. I don't know who's going to be quarterback for the. All right.
Who's playing quarterback?
Yeah, people's elbows everywhere. But you're right. I think Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. All right. I've never seen a team that fell one game short of the Super Bowl, and they didn't get anything to upgrade when the only thing you have is Devontae Adams. And even though Devontae Adams is a top 6 or 7 wide receiver, you still need help on the other side of the field. You still need help on the other side.
I'll see that and raise you this, Danny Thompson. How do you get run all over the damn field in said conference championship and then extend your defensive tackle to be the highest paid at his position? No.
Well, I like Kenny Clark. I think he's worth the money.
But
listen, here's the issue. If they actually did other things on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Kenny Clark and I can't remember his name, the pass rusher, Zadarius Smith, they have good pass rushers. The other problem is they couldn't. The 49ers ran for like 7,000 yards in the NFC Championship game. All right, everybody touched the ball. It was like Tecmo Bowl. It was Tecmo Bowl. They called a run, and the Packers kept calling a pass, and nobody could tackle the running back. That's what it was. That's what it was all day, the NFC Championship game. I mean, Raheem Mostert basically got paid off of one game. It is what it is. So, no, that's my two compelling storylines for the NFC. Now, on the AFC side of things, you already touched Cam Newton, so I won't touch Cam Newton. We all know how important the whole situation Cam Newton is. But my thing is, what does Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens do for an encore? Lamar Jackson was league's MVP last year. Listen, if
he was voted league's MVP, I don't know that he was league's MVP.
Listen, you can't take it away from him. But
I'm not. I'm just stating facts.
The intriguing fact of the Baltimore Ravens potentially bringing in Antonio Brown or even a Dez Bryant, which has been reported, makes things a little bit interesting. Listen, Dez Bryant and Antonio Brown don't have to go in and be their best version of themselves, but them being on the field will cause a lot of problems for the division.
Sure.
We all talk about if Lamar Jackson had a actual, no offense to Mark Andrews, who's arguably one of the top 5 tight ends in the league, and nothing against Hollywood Brown, but he doesn't have an elite level wide receiver. If he ever had a top tier wide receiver, I wonder how much running will Lamar Jackson do? Because if you have somebody who can stretch the field and make plays at receiver, Lamar don't have to run. He makes it become even more dangerous. So I'm interested to see what the Ravens are going to do, especially now with the potential of bringing guys in to make this team better than what it was. Now, the other thing I'm looking at and no, the Houston Texans aren't one, but I'm intrigued to see what the Denver Broncos are going to do with all that young talent on that offensive side of the ball. The offensive talent of the Denver Broncos is, we all know about Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy. They have the running backs with Melvin Gordon. They have Philip Lindsay. They have the tight end. They have, I think, Noah Fant tight end. They have a lot of young talent over there. Oh, I forgot Courtland Sutton. They have so much talent on offense at that position. They're all young. I want to see how Drew Lock can get those guys together with a pretty solid offensive line in a division, because you're not catching Kansas City. But San Diego's in transition with a brand new quarterback. Potentially, you'll see Justin Herbert sometime this season. And Las Vegas, you don't know what you're getting with Las Vegas.
Really
Denver has a chance to be the second best team in this division this year. They already have a really killer defense. Listen, they still have a top 10 defense. Hey, Precious.
Hi, Precious.
So you have a top 10 defense, and then on top of that, you have a young offense. If Drew Lock can do anything and be anywhere, I think, comparable, guess what? The Broncos are dangerous.
Well,
and with additional playoffs.
You're assuming a lot from Lock, and I get why you're pointing out the Broncos, but the lead of the story is, can Drew Lock do anything? And if he does, that he is the key to everything you're talking about on Lock.
Yeah, I think the maturation of Kyler Murray and Drew Lock in both Western divisions can change a lot of things. In the AFC, remember, in the league this year, there's one additional playoff spot, because guess what? The NFL decided to get creative, added one additional playoff spot, which means the Broncos could sneak in as a dangerous number 7 seed in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but they have the potential because you have a lights out defense. They have a very good defense over there.
You know, LA Broadus would hate if that happens, because he's going to take their Browns 7th spot.
Listen, the Browns are baking everything on Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
I mean Baker Mayfield. They have a lot of talent. But speaking of talent, let's switch things over to college football. So, Kyle, the SEC opened up their schedules to everybody, and guess what? Word of the street was the SEC media conference that had all the coaches online turned into a complete version of football's version of Love and Hip Hop when they have the reunion show. There was a lot of complaining, a lot of arguing, and a lot of people upset with the SEC scheduling. Kyle, from what the reports were, it was like a reality show on air. Why? Because some of the teams in the conference believe that some of the teams got an unfair advantage when it comes to scheduling. Why do we say unfair Why do we say unfair practices in the SEC? Because people are complaining about what Alabama got to their schedule added on to what they're playing this year. So let's talk about this. What the SEC was attempting to do was make sure teams don't play each other in back-to-back years in the non-divisional games, a la Alabama avoiding Florida playing them because they play in 2021.
Okay.
So, Kyle, let's take a look at what the SEC has done to themselves. And Kyle, I want your opinion to see were some of the teams and some of the coaches and the athletic departments, were they right in their feelings about this?
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna go over some of the SEC's additional scheduling. Now, Auburn will now play their non-conference opponents. The non-divisional opponents are Kentucky. They already had Georgia slotted this year. And Missouri. Alabama draws Kentucky and Missouri as their two additional games. Auburn, non-division, will play. Okay, so non-division for Alabama is Missouri, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. All right. Auburn draws Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. All right, as their non-division games.
Okay.
You can see where the complaining comes into play, because LSU, Florida, they have South Carolina, they have Vanderbilt, and that is it for their non-divisional games. So, in Missouri. So the lower teams in the conference were complaining because guess what? They got sent to the wolves.
Well, gosh, guys, I mean, what's left other than the teams you play? Folks, listen, if you're in the SEC, the chances are you're going to play some tough teams. And when that schedule becomes SEC focused, I don't care what you haters out there who back Clemson all the time and want to tell me about how the ACC matters, looking at you, Rodney the Troll, okay? If you SEC teams play more SEC teams, that's what's going to happen, guys.
But here's Florida's schedule, Kyle.
Yeah.
Florida non-conference, non-division. Ole Miss, Texas A&M. We're looking at LSU and Arkansas. Florida got the easy stretch of this. The only thing you got to do is you got to go to play LSU. And guess what? I think LSU is at home. That's it.
Only the defending national championships, right?
But you give them Ole Miss, you throw A&M, and
Ole Miss,
you give them Arkansas.
Arkansas is obviously a weak team. At least it's not Vanderbilt. That's my response to that.
They play Vanderbilt in the division, so
Ole Miss has pulled some upsets. That's not a give me. I hate to be that guy. That's the team that's beaten a top-ranked Arkansas team in the past. Alabama.
But at the end of the day, the people, the scheduling department was the people at some university would complain that Alabama got off lucky by avoiding Georgia, avoiding Florida, and avoiding Florida was the main issue because they thought Florida and Alabama were supposed to play this year, but they said scheduling quirks didn't allow it. Kyle, do you think some of these universities have some complaint about the scheduling, or you think they did a good job by trying to avoid teams playing in back-to-back years? You think they did a good job with this?
Well, I don't have all the details for the individual schools and all that stuff. There's a lot more things to cry foul about than this. Okay. Now, in the case of Alabama, they're always talked about as having a schedule they can get around things. Certainly, seasons in the past where they have such juggernauts as the Citadel on their schedule. I get it. But I'll tell you what, man, it's hard for me. I can see it, but I'm not. This isn't that bad. I'm not in that place. Okay, I think it's a bigger gift to Notre Dame that they get to adopt the ACC as a damn conference. That's what I think. You know,
I mean,
if this is their beef, stop whining. What you know? What you want to schedule a top-ranked school so bad? How about scheduling Boise State or UCF or BYU or someone like that who will play you, and you're too scared to face?
now the other complaint was when they did the readjusting of the schedule, Alabama got a week off before LSU. That was the other complaint with the schedule.
Now that's a good complaint. I can appreciate that. Yes, absolutely.
Like they got the open date right then and there. Auburn's open date would be right before so after LSU they get an open date before Mississippi State. So that was a key thing about that as well too. All right. So Kyle, and speaking of things being inside, you know, this is the time of the show where we have to go inside because guess what? Now it's time to start building. What do you mean building, ladies and gentlemen? Guess what? We're not building baseball teams because there's still teams that haven't caught up the schedule-wise. So we won't talk baseball until baseball decides to catch up with themselves. But we will talk NHL for about maybe 90 seconds. So guess what? The NHL playoffs are on. And Kyle, the most entertaining game of the weekend happened when guess what? You had the the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning play arguably the longest game I've ever seen in my life. Fourth longest game in NHL history. It was so long that it made the Carolina Hurricanes and Boston Bruins play the next day because it took too long.
That's hardcore.
The game was 7 periods. The game lasted 7 periods. Now, what does that mean? That's the equivalent of 2 full games because it's 20-minute periods and 3 periods. All right. They played over 130 some odd minutes before. Now, also, the game also did not have a last minute penalty shot call, which was very controversial because guess what? The Lightning scored the next time around. Lightning win the game, but most importantly, they took almost 90 shots on goal. Yes. Great stuff in the NHL. All right. Speaking of things, now mind you, NHL's in Canada, so let's drive down a little bit further. Let's take a good look down to our good friends at Mount Rushmore. Yes. For those who don't know, Kyle and I go through a segment called Mount Rushmore every single week. All right. For those who not watch the show, especially or not watch this segment, shame on you. What me and Kyle do is we go through our what we call Mount Rushmore, which is the top 4 or our favorite 4 or just 4 you put on a pedestal of a particular topic. Kyle and I go through these particular topics, but the best news is Kyle doesn't know the topic until I give it to him, which will be right about now. Now, Kyle and I we've talked about different things from beer down to food, down to sports movies. We even talked about sodas. And Kyle even had his own when I was out a couple weeks ago when he had one about movies you can rewatch again. So guess what? And we also done Cars, for example. So we've touched the scope of everything. So tonight's one's going to be a little bit more touching of the scope here. Kyle, we're stuck at home. It's COVID.
Uh-oh.
Pretty soon the world will open back up. Hopefully. It might not be the same way as we left it, but pretty soon the world will open back up, Kyle. So tonight, Mount Rushmore, Kyle, is Mount Rushmore of vacation places.
Ooh, yes. Yes, Danny Thompson. Okay. So
now what I'm going to do is the rule is it does not have to be a place that you already visited. It can be a place you visit or a place you have not visited. So this is the Mount Rushmore of vacation places. Kyle, go ahead.
Hey, listen, man. First of all, perhaps you looked at me, but I have a little bit of hue to me. I love the sun. I'm a certified scuba diver. I'm going to do that thing there. Take me all the way down to the Keys, Key West, Aruba. I don't know about Aruba. I don't know about Jamaica. I don't need to leave the country. Key West is where it's at. The food is great. The drinks are great. And by the way, you can dive, hit the beach, do whatever it is you need to do. And if you want to sit back and just sleep, that's an option as well. Put Key West on the list, my friends. It's a good time all the way around. Now, if you find yourself in a position where you want to walk around a lot, you're somebody who wants to do the whole culture and museum thing. Listen, I know everyone's going to tell you Paris and it's great and all that. Me personally, I had a better time in Berlin. And oh, by the way, they got great beer. They have laws in Germany that you can't that you can't do certain practices that breweries in the States do to preserve the freshness. Berlin, Germany is a good time all the way around. If you like culture, if you like beer, if you like food, and you like just a cool scene, man. Like Berlin is probably one of the hipper cities that I've been to that doesn't just go straight off the wall, crazy college student, ignorant of what's around them, like Seattle does. Hashtag I said it. So put Berlin on the list for me. And second, I haven't been there in a long time, but put Hawaii there too. It's a literal escape hatch. Like the only other way you can do an escape like this is if you're on a boat, like a cruise or something. And considering a pandemic just happened, I ain't about to do a boat anytime soon. Hawaii is a great place. You got anything from mountainous terrain to beach fun and sun and everything in between. And damn it, if you want to turn your phone off, you can. And even if you don't, everyone's 6 hours away. They're not awake when you're rocking and rolling. It's all good, okay? And finally, on the strength of one thing, if you love music, if you love nightlife, if you love food, ladies and gentlemen, the only problem I have is the fact, well, Danny might have a problem with it because one of his rival teams are there. My problem is I'd have to make sure I made time for the in-laws. I refer to New Orleans, Louisiana. That is a great place to be, even if you're worried about in-laws or the New Orleans Saints. Danny Thompson.
Well, first off, I'm only going to New Orleans for the gumbo. Bobby, are you available tonight, my friend? Are you back in New Jersey?
He's going to give us that banner, he said. Let's see if we got it to come up yet.
Let's see if he's going to pop up. I know Bobby's enjoying the rain up in New Jersey. I know it's raining up that way tonight. So I'll give him another 15 seconds or so if he pops in. All right. I think Bobby is enjoying the rain up in New Jersey. Normally he'll pop in during the segment. So, all right. So the Mount Rushmore vacation places. For me, listen, and there's no particular order. There's so many places you can travel. Now, Kyle, I will say this. One of my first places in line, you mentioned food, you mentioned the beach, but listen, Puerto Rico is where it's at.
Puerto Rico is a good time, Danny Thompson. You make a great point.
San Juan, Puerto Rico, and just Puerto Rico in general is a great place to go. White sand beaches, outstanding food, great shopping, like you mentioned before, culture everywhere. There's nothing but beaches, white sand. It's the culture. Yes, it's a combination. It feels like a little bit of New York City meets the beach at the same time, but there's so much to do in San Juan. There's so much to eat, so many places to go. Not just San Juan, but just Puerto Rico in general. If you want to go take a weekend and go, you can go and enjoy every minute of it. So that's place number one on my list.
Hey, place number two, running, it's a good time. You're absolutely right.
And not to mention, like I said, people drive like it's New York, it's the interstate. It's lovely. It's NASCAR without being NASCAR. All right. Place number two.
They won't demand you to speak English.
Listen. It's one of the few countries you get cussed out in two languages for switching 8 lanes. Yes. Go. All right. Vacation spot number 2. Listen, you mentioned this earlier, but this place also is home for me. It's where I was born. It's the place where I was literally, if you want to call it hatched, I was hatched. If I came out, I came out. This is where I'm from. But where I was born, it is Hawaii. Listen, Hawaii has
cool.
Yes. Hawaii is a place where, listen, I was born in Honolulu. So you have, like you said, you have everything there. You're right. It's 6 hours away from everything. Nothing better than a luau. All right. Being able to have a pig being roasted in front of you while getting your hula dance on, watching the sunset over the mountains or the beach is phenomenal. Crazy. Yes. In some cases, money is optional because guess what? You're going to need a lot of it there anyway. All right. It has everything there. Everything from the ability to walk up mountains, the ability to go down waterfalls. You want to go swimming, it's perfect. Listen, watch out for the funny wildlife out there, but it is what it is. It's Hawaii. All right. The people are friendly. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And there's palm trees. Who doesn't love palm trees? All right.
I love palm trees.
Listen, we both lived in a state, and you live there now that has palm trees there for Christmas. All right. Place number 3, Kyle. This is on this place. It should make everybody's list, but it made yours, but it didn't. I've never been to Berlin, but Paris is on my list at number 3. Sure. I'll tell you why. Listen. There's nothing like the Eiffel Tower, and I don't mean Rudy Gobert, all right? The Eiffel Tower is there, the Louvre, all the wonderful artifacts there. It's beautiful. It's romantic. It's the food. It's the culture. It's Paris, for crying out loud. Who doesn't want to go take pictures in Paris and to say that you're there? The shopping's amazing, and guess what? The food, the cuisine, the ambiance, the nightlife, everything there is in Paris. And like I said, if you have a special significant somebody, it's the perfect place to go. I plan on going pretty soon.
Nice.
Sooner than later. All right. So we've gone 1, we've gone 2, we've gone 3. Let's go place number 4. I'm gonna go someplace a little different. One of the places I've always wanted to go to on my list. No, it's not Bora Bora, and no, it's not Japan. Even though Japan's high on the list.
Japan would know how to handle me. That's my only concern. Like I'd be walking up,
Listen, one of the few places I do always wanted to go to. I've always wanted to go to Australia, in Sydney, especially Sydney. Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, I know Sydney might have a little bit. It's like why Sydney? Why Sydney? Number one, besides the fact of it's like New York. It's like there's the Western Pacific version of New York City. It's gorgeous. It really is. Sydney's a gorgeous city. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do is go to the Opera House.
Sure.
Take a picture in front of the Opera House. The Sydney Opera House, one of the most landmark places across the world. It's a beautiful place to go. The food is really good. It's a combination of being in America, but also being in a different country at the same time. And besides, listen, 2 of the best animals in the world live out there. Koala bears and kangaroos. Damn it, if I'm out there, I'm bringing one of them back. And I don't mean a stuffed one. All right? All right. For me, kangaroos have been popular ever since me watching the Flintstones and watching Hoppy. If you're a real Flintstone fan, you know who Hoppy is. Hoppy was the rebel pet that was able to put Pebbles and Bam Bam inside of Hoppy and let Hoppy hop around. Listen, that's a life goal to have a kangaroo that I can put my child in and let them hop around the damn house. All right. And besides, Australian rules football is freaking phenomenal, and I want to go see an Australian rules football match. All right.
That I can't front on. It's pretty amazing. Although, while footy is great, and so are kangaroos and koala bears
and beer.
The top 10 most poisonous snakes all also reside in Australia, for the record.
Hell, some of them in Florida too.
Not the top 10, they don't.
Hey, listen, if you're going to be the top 10 of something, be somewhere in the top 10.
Okay, like the great white shark?
Listen, I'm a Mike. Listen, if I see a shark, I'm pulling a Mike Tyson. If Mike Tyson can put a shark to sleep, so can I. All right. And Bobby's list is Vegas, the Jersey Shore, anywhere with the beach, and Italy. Well, I don't see anywhere with the beach. That's so. You know what? I'll give him that one.
He says that and Jersey Shore. I don't get it. Whatever.
Listen, Bobby's from Jersey, so the Jersey Shore is an amazing place for people who like the Jersey Shore. Vegas is a great choice. I mean, Vegas has everything.
Literally.
I'm just saying. I mean, what more can I say about that? Literally everything's there. In the chat, Mike DeSantis did mention PR is awesome. It is. It's a great place to go.
When it's all right. Running, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jamaica's in the top 5. Precious chimes in with Paris, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Africa.
Safaris are cool. I would do one.
I mean, listen, I'm all for being out in riding around trying to find a zebra or a zebra. Just know that if I see a lion, I'm going to pee in my pants. All right. So, Kyle, any shout outs before you go, my friend?
Hey, listen, today's the 17th. Tomorrow's the 18th. Here in Orlando, in the general area, is the primary elections. I don't care who you're voting for, but take your ballot in and get it done. Do your job as an American. Vote for your primaries so we know who we're running for. You have a say in who's going for the seats in November.
Exactly. Big shout out to our good friends at Blackjack Television, I-95 Zingo Television Channel 199 is where you're going to find our show, not just tonight, but also throughout the entire week. We also do the show on Thursday night as well, too, because me and Kyle, we like talking sports and we like talking different things in life. Also, big shout out to everybody in the chat who like, share, and tag the post, as well as all the people who are watching now, watching later, and watching sometime later on this week. Also, before we go, once again, I say this, I'm going to continue saying this until this happens. Number one, it is time to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. Keep saying her name, hashtag, by the way. I've lost track of the number of days. It's been over 160 days since the Breonna Taylor was murdered for no reason by Louisville police. And the killers that have done that have still not been arrested. They're still walking around free. And until that happens, we'll keep saying her name and keeping her name in our voice, in my voice, and many other voices as well too. So keep saying her name, keep preaching her name, and please take care of that. And by the way, Kyle's also drinking tonight the same beer he drank the other night that we need to keep finding out there. It's called Black is Beautiful. Kyle?
That's right. Yeah, Black is Beautiful. Boeing's answer to a stout called Midnight Order has a little bit of jalapeno pepper in it. It's with a vanilla and chocolate twist. It sounds off, but it's a beautiful thing. Boeing's Craft Brewery, bringing to you a portion of the proceeds go to I forget the organization, but it's a social justice organization.
Exactly. So, Arrest the Killers of Breonna Taylor for myself and the Studio Game, Mr. Kyle Nash. We'll check you guys out on Thursday night, guys and gals. See you later. Peace.